We're going to show you the hand clasp suggestibility test. Now it's important to keep in mind, and I'll explain at the end of this video, this doesn't just have to be a suggestibility test. It is popular as a suggestibility test, but I will explain to you how it can also be an induction and it can also be used as a deepener. So there's 3 different functions you can get out of this one procedure, and that makes it pretty useful and powerful. So when you're using it to assess suggestibility, what you want to do, the basic idea is the end game, the end result is you want to get people's hands stuck together, okay? The way you do this is by setting them up properly and then engaging in a series of patter that creates the right images, the right effects in their mind. So to get people set up, again, you can, with a lot of these suggestibility tests, you can do it with a person who's standing or you can do it with a person who's seated. If they're seated, you pretty much just get right into getting their arms positioned the way that you want. If they're standing, you need to get them safely positioned for balance and effectiveness that way. So with a standing volunteer like Evan, you're going to ask them to put their feet shoulder width apart, a little bend in their knees so that their knees don't get locked out and get sore. You want them to be comfortable. And then you're going to direct them to bring both of their arms up shoulder high, put their palms flat together and interlock their fingers and even cross over their thumbs. All right, so you want to check this, you verify that it's good with them, and then you proceed from there. And what I like to do, you'll hear, if you watch this, you go on, you watch other videos, there's all kinds of different ways you can phrase the patter. There's no right or wrong way. The most important thing is that you do it confidently and as clearly as you can so that the person can follow and have an image in their mind of what the experience should be like. So for me, what I tell people to do is I tell them to focus on the closest knuckle of the closest thumb. That gives them a fixation point visually. And then I build patter around an image of a clamp. Most people have seen a clamp at some point in their life, maybe even held one or used one. They understand the idea of clamping together. So that's the language that I use. And I say that's what the expectation is. So here goes in real time. All right, Evan, would you like to assess your level of hypnotic suggestibility?
Yeah.
All right, I'll do something really simple with you that'll help you do that. All I need you to do is put your feet shoulder width apart, put a little bend in your knees so your knees don't get sore, then bring your 2 arms up shoulder high, straight out in front of you. Excellent. Put your palms flat together. Now interlace your fingers and even cross over your thumbs. Excellent. Now, Evan, you're going to stare at the closest knuckle of the closest thumb. And just stare at that knuckle to the best of your ability. Hold your attention on that point, also listening to the sound of my voice. And simultaneously, as you stare at the closest knuckle of the closest thumb, Evan, in your mind, imagine, picture, if you will, a clamp. At some point in your life, you've probably seen a clamp, held a clamp, maybe even used a clamp. Clamps come in all different shapes, sizes, colors, and varieties. All that matters is that you picture the one that seems to be the most appropriate for you inside your mind. And now, literally, inside your mind, tell yourself that your hands are that clamp. Now, you're in charge today. I'm just here to help. It's important that you, with confidence and authority in your mind, tell yourself that literally now your hands are a clamp. You can say in your mind, literally, you can say, now my hands are a clamp. My hands are a clamp. I'm going to count from 1 up to 5. Every time I count a number, crank your clamp tighter and tighter. Put all of your power, all of your determination, all of your strength into cranking your clamp as tightly closed as you can. Let's start with the number 1. Gather all the energy, the willpower, the determination, the positive intention that you possess. Channel it from your mind, Evan, down through your body. Send it down through your neck. Let it roll and wave and push down through your shoulders, your triceps, your biceps, your elbows. It squeezes, flows down through the wrists, into the forearms, the wrists, into the hands, pressing, driving. 2, another wave from your mind down the arms into the hands, squeezing, pressing, driving, clamping. At 3, imagine that I come to you and I pour crazy glue, super glue all over your hands. I dump a bucket of crazy glue, super glue all over your hands. It runs all over the outside. It gets down in the nooks, the crannies, the cracks, the crevices, the spaces, and super glue, crazy glue, they bond human skin together. Your hands fusing into one solid mass of muscle, flesh, and bone, but you can keep squeezing. You're doing great. 4, in your mind, say the words Loctite over and over again. Loctite, Loctite, Loctite. Don't just say it. Say it like you mean it. Say it like you're commanding them to lock tight. You're in charge. I'm just helping. Demand now that they lock tight. And at the last and final number, 5, in your mind, really loud with authority, say lock tight now. And you can try once to pull them apart. They'll go even more together. You can try harder the second time to pull them apart. They'll go even more together. You can try really hard the third time to pull them apart. They'll go even more together. Excellent. Now just stop trying and focus on the way your hands feel. Now I'm going to come over to you and I'm going to grasp your hands gently by the wrist. I'm going to pulse gently but firmly on your wrist and say the word sleep. And when I do, you can let yourself go into a deep, deep state of hypnotic relaxation. Let yourself sleep. Now, deeper and deeper, more and more relaxed. Everything getting more and more relaxed. Legs, so I'll stay strong in your legs. The arms are heavy, the arms are loose. Even more focused on the sound of my voice. Now, 1, 2, 3, awake. There we go, very good, okay? So what I did there was I extended the suggestibility test into that next step, which I said can be an induction, okay? So if we go back over just the suggestibility part, once Evan, or whoever your volunteer is, has those hands stuck together, and you can see, you're assessing that they're actually, you see them trying to pull them apart and they're not coming apart, then there is that moment of realization where they're like, wow, this is really working, this is cool. And so what you can do, Evan, just mimic that part again for me. When they get to that point, you can say, all right, now just sort of 1, 2, 3, release, and they'll just come right apart, and they do. You're directing it and they do. And that can be the end of it right there. But I wanted you to see that next level of how you can just make it into an induction, because here's the thing, think about it this way. In order for the suggestibility test to work, you have to achieve catalepsy, right? You have to get that catalepsy that gets the hand stuck. Well, the only way you get catalepsy is to go into hypnosis. So yes, you can do it because you know that if they pass the test, then they were suggestible enough to get to a light level of hypnosis, right? To get catalepsy going. But in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, you can do that and that's fine. But why not just use it as an induction then? You've got them in hypnosis in order to create the catalepsy. So I like to think of this more in a lot of ways as an induction than as a suggestibility test. And in my show, what I'll do a lot is I'll use it actually as a deepener. I'll do some suggestibility tests, some other ones. Then I'll do a verbal induction pattern and get eye closure. Then I'll fractionate their eyes open. I'll get them to fractionate. They'll open their eyes. I'll talk briefly to them. And then I will get them to do this hand clasp as a deepening exercise. They get their hands stuck, and then I go down. If I have a line of people in chairs, I go down the line, just like I did with Evan, and I tell them I'm going to pull on your wrists. I pull their wrists, and they go back, and they induce into hypnosis, and they go deeper when they re-induce. They fractionate again. And so it's nice that in this particular exercise, you have 3 options. You can use any or all of them, whatever feels comfortable to you. I think the first thing to do is just get comfortable using it as a suggestibility test and getting used to that process. And then once you know you do it well and do it with confidence, add the extra layer of pulling on the hands and getting them to go deeper into hypnosis. The key when you do that, you'll notice what Evan naturally did, because there's a sense of release when you pull. They tend to go loose in the upper body, and even if the legs stay strong, they tend to slouch over. So you want to be pretty square to them. You want to have your feet separated so that you've got forward, backward mobility, and you can load up whichever leg you need to put strength in and balance. And you need to be prepared when you go to that next level and you tug on the wrists. You need to be prepared for the possibility that that person will come forward and potentially lean against you. Or in other cases, what I've had some people do is they sort of go straight down. Is you go sleep and they sort of just go loose. And so you need to be prepared. It'll be hard to do because our arms don't. Evan, put your hands out again. Think about it. Cheat them up a little bit unnaturally. So think about their clasp. You need to be prepared to, when you go sleep, to then, as their hands are falling down, release your hands and be prepared to hook them if you need to support them. So you have to keep your hands active, okay? And be ready for that. Because they could, if they're just going to sink down, you don't want them to jackhammer down their knees onto the floor and hurt themselves potentially, or even just be uncomfortable. So you want to be ready to release the hands down, free your hands up, and either grasp them here. If they come forward, you want to be prepared to wrap them up. You've got control here. Or if they go straight down, you might need to sort of forklift them and get the arms through. Or if you can't do that, you at least need to be able to get the arms outside so that you can provide some gentle resistance as they go down and help them ease down instead of just collapsing down. You got to be prepared for all those eventualities. It's important. Another fine point that I want to point out is when you get to the point where you go beyond the suggestibility test and you're going to do it as an induction or a deepener, when you do the wrist tug, it really should be, Evan, put your hands up again. It should be a really just kind of a tug. You don't want to grab more of their hands and flick and kind of snap their wrists. That's uncomfortable. And I've made positioning errors before over my years where, you know, you don't hurt them, but sometimes people have their, you know, like we all have pops, like we can pop our fingers. It'll pop their wrists sometimes, and it kind of is loud, and you don't want that. Sometimes people will be like, oh, what was that? And you don't want it to throw them off and stuff. So you want to get your hands up over their wrists so that really what you have is the very end of their forearm. And that way you don't have to worry about that happening, and you just are giving it a little tug down. You're not snapping, you're not whipping, it's just a little tug, and they'll release. All right, so that's just a finer point to keep an eye on when you practice as well. That is pretty much it. That's the hand clasp, suggestibility test, induction, or deepener.